when you say that this is an innovation, it only makes sense for a consumer at a point where it has scaled. You must have heard this. Everybody says, there should be a story. We should talk about a story. That's all, when it's really not very true. Because when I have ever pitched to investors, and I'm doing that now as well, you know what they ask me? So how are you going to make money? Founders are also seen as the owners of the business and have the ultimate responsibility. No one invests in a company which is, this is likely to sell for, okay, it will make $10 million. It's okay, I'm very happy making $10 million, I'll invest in this company. That doesn't happen. That's not the philosophy of venture. Venture is about creating the next big thing.
Did you know, in the world of venture capital and angel investing, men and women invest differently? Now that you know, how should you pitch for fundraise to different investors? Also, if you are a venture that's focused on sustainability and building for impact, there's a lot that came up in Budget 2023 towards green growth. So, what are the opportunities really? And what does that mean for CXOs, business owners and entrepreneurs? This and much more comes up in my conversation today with my guest on CXO Talks, Aditi Balbir, founder of EcoRatings. Transitioning from consulting and managing and founding a premium hospitality business in V Resorts, Aditi is from the earliest crops of women-led businesses in India when startups were just becoming a buzz. She has also successfully raised 4 rounds of venture capital funding in V Resorts. As someone who believes the first principle of sustainability is economic viability, Aditi is now decoding sustainability parameters for businesses and helping the end consumer make an informed choice while shopping. Now, let's hear what this CXO talks. Hi Aditi, super happy to see you on this nice sunny morning and very warm welcome on CXO Talks.
Thank you. Great to be here.
You know what I'm very curious about, because the timing of our conversation is very close to the very recent budget announcement that our finance minister did. And there was a lot of focus on green growth, right? And the fact that this is actually a big opportunity for startups in the sustainability space. I would love your insights, because you are somebody who is an expert and who's really spearleading the movement on sustainability with your venture now. So give me some insights on what is your take on green growth and what are the opportunities ahead.
So I think at least what Nirmala Sitharaman did was not really pick out too many sectors that startups could work on. It looks more project finance based. So we're talking about large investments in hydrogen fuel, replacement of old cars, EVs, things like that. So yes, of course, gives an impetus to the EV manufacturers. But not so much the startup community as such, because this fund is pretty much meant for the large infrastructure providers. However, what you don't know is that there is actually a climate fund which is coming into place, which she did not speak about, but it's still in early stages, and that is something which is interesting, because that will allocate money just like we have an allocation from SIDBI and from SBI, etc., on some amount of money going into startups. Similarly, this is a pure fund which will allocate money towards any startup or any venture in climate change. So it's going to be quite a big deal. But as as you see the budget itself, it's a good start, I would say, because it means that the government is focusing on this sector. But yes, initially it's about building the infrastructure.
Right. And from the time when you started V Resorts to now with Zero Carbon Earth, and now moving really aggressively into sustainability and creating that tool and product for businesses to really understand how they can be sustainable, and even creating that awareness for consumers. What I'm very curious about, so what I'm reminded of is this saying by Henry Ford, that he said, if I was to listen to the consumers, I'd end up creating faster horses instead of cars. Does the consumer really understand what sustainability is, what net zero is, what zero carbon is? Do you think consumers really understand?
Consumers want to understand, okay? And why I know this is because there is a lot of research around this sector. So if you see the recent Nielsen reports, which are global in nature, you'll find a whopping 69% of shoppers who are saying that they want to make sustainable purchases across the globe, okay? In India, the figure is smaller, but it's still there. So, what it really means is that they do want to understand, but at the same time, it isn't a consumer's job to educate themselves on how sustainable they can be, right? So, at the present time, what they do is that they really rely on the brands to give out information. But if you really look at it, a brand is talking about themselves, right? So it's not very credible, it's not very objective. And I feel, and right now they don't have anywhere else to go. The consumers can only rely on that. But as you know, there are lots of consultancies, there are a lot of third party independent verifiers. And so, if there was one independent party that would tell a consumer very simply, very easily, right, that this product is sustainable, I think they will pay attention. Okay. Now, if I really had to simplify sustainability also, it's really easy to understand. What it says is how how do you contribute, or how does the product contribute to the society? Okay, so that means to all stakeholders, to employees, to investors, to customers, to everybody, to the local community and everything. So it's all about social impact, right? And the second part is that about carbon emissions, which everybody knows this term, carbon emissions. Okay, so what does consumer need to know? A consumer needs to know that if I have two products in a similar category, one product gives more to the local community, it has fewer carbon emissions than the next one, and therefore it is sustainable. Okay. There are certain industries which are the large polluters. We all know, like textiles, jeans is huge. It takes up a lot of water. So, if we are actually going to say that, those industries will suddenly become sustainable, it's not going to happen. But what we do have to do is push producers towards doing the best that they can, towards innovation. So there is innovation in the sector where so many people are reusing, recycling, and you've heard all these words coming in before. So consumer doesn't need to get to know what's happening at a brand level. All they need to know is, does this product add to my carbon emissions or does it reduce? And does this product add to the local community or does it take away from? And if you have these two parameters, very simplistically put, a consumer can make their choice. And I feel today, maybe not our generation, right, but millennials, Gen Z, they are already very particular. Okay, so the new shopper, the guys who are now, earning the money to be able to spend, are anyways conscious. And if you have these two simple data points for them, I believe that all things remaining simple or the same, they will choose the more sustainable option.
Right. I think it's about just helping them make that decision, creating that
Absolutely.
awareness and making that awareness very click away.
It should be quantifiable. So think like, say, TripAdvisor. Before TripAdvisor, we never had a way to quantify what consumers say. Nobody even thought about it. Nobody thought that, okay, I'm going to this property because somebody said it's great. No, people just said, okay, it's looking nice, let's try it out, right? You were going in blind, frankly. With TripAdvisor, you have a number. It's so easy. If I see the number and I see this is the property, it's rated 5. Now, my criteria says I will only go to a property that's rated 5. Your criteria could be, okay, 4.5 works for me. Somebody else could say, okay, it's budget, even 3 is fine. It's clean, I'm good, I'll go there. So, you could easily actually understand based on consumer reviews where you wanted to go. It's such a powerful thing, it's such a powerful tool. And it's third party. So that is why even today, when you see reviews on all the OTAs and everything, you will ultimately go to a TripAdvisor because you trust them the most. They never built their business on selling the property. They are building their business on giving the reviews. So similarly, like I said, it's actually about quantifying it, giving it a number so simple that somebody can say, oh, this product is, say, 6 on 10, this product is 5 on 10, price is same, looks similar, I'll go for the 6 on 10 one. As simple as that.
So I think, what I take away from this conversation for any sustainability any business which is driven towards creating more awareness on sustainability, it is first, of course, measuring the impact, quantifying it, and then making the consumer aware, right? Um, from there on, I think what I would love as an insight, especially for the audience who'd be watching us and seeing this and listening to the show, is if they are looking to build, because now there is an opportunity and there is, we talked early on about how the finance minister talked about opportunities in towards green growth. What are the three things that you'd love to share for the businesses that they can probably be cognizant of while they're building towards a sustainable future, towards building brands or businesses which care about creating this impact? What are three things they should? Where should they start? Let me ask you that.
Where should they focus? Right.
Yeah.
Look, there is a lot of infrastructure, like I said, to be built around this, right? So, as you can probably imagine also, when we make a certain thing or a certain product, the most important thing in terms of sustainability is the energy usage, the water usage, the resources, basically, right? That's the first criteria. Now, unfortunately, you can't do much about it. I want to be in Delhi, I want to start something, but I know my grid is dirty because it is powered by thermal. So I can't do anything about it, right? I still need to take that power. Okay, so there is infrastructure being built around, the fact that you might have, say, your own solar power plant in your house, okay, which is expensive, which requires area and stuff. So that's also a bit difficult. Or there is a system where you can actually draw electricity from a clean grid, and it's an open source, it's getting developed, it is something which is there in the pipeline. At a point of time, households can make a decision of where they pull their power from. So that would be interesting, but like I said, this is all infrastructure related. So imagine you're making, again, like I say, a pair of jeans, okay? Your factory is open for 12 hours. Now you can't do anything about it. You're getting the electricity that you're getting, right? It'll come from the government. The change will come there. So not much that you can do, right? Let's come to water. Water also, there is a certain process. There is a manufacturing process to jeans. They have to be washed thrice. They take about 10 gallons of water to make one pair of jeans, and so on and so forth. So anyway, the point is that the manufacturing process exists. Now if I tell you stop making jeans, that won't happen, that's your business. Or if I say change your manufacturing process, it's going to take you a very long time to get there, correct? So let's look at the easier things. What can you actually do which is easier? Easier things are around sourcing locally, reducing supply chains, okay? So if you were getting your cotton from Sri Lanka, stop doing that. Try to find a source within India. If your factory says in India and you're making jeans here, so try and find a source which is closer to your factory. You can do something like that. It's called responsible sourcing, or it's basically called local sourcing. That's something easy that one can do. All right. If you look at your own people, your own employees, there are many things you can do for them that will make you contribute more to social impact. So these are the easier ones that you can start doing. If you want to be responsible, of course, it's very industry specific as well. But being responsible can start from smaller steps, okay? A big issue is on recycling and reuse, right? But even that requires a lot of infrastructure, because you see, ultimately what happens is, fine, whatever wastage you had in your own factory, you can do something with it. You can make a bag, or you can, do something. But the problem is that once it goes to the consumers, again, there is a whole collection system that, okay, they've stopped using that pair of jeans, they need to give that pair of jeans back. Again, there are startups working on this. There's a very beautiful one called Revolve that is working on this, where they are telling customers, give back your old stuff under these brands, and you can get some discount, or you can get a new piece or something like that, right? So it's happening, but a lot of infrastructure is required to be built around it. I feel the points around social impact are easier to get. So there are points on no poverty, which is basically around hiring more local people. okay, giving more employment to them rather than giving it to very, very skilled people or people from other states, okay. Then there is a point around skilling. So you can train them, you can invest a little bit in training and upskilling them to do, to do other things so that they can increase their wage level. You can have fair working conditions. You can have a decent workplace so that the workplace itself is hygienic. So we can do all those things. Those things which are all around social impact can be done way easily and has to be done actually at the unit level. So they can start with that, and then they can slowly work their way towards other things. So material revolution is a big space, right? People are not using organic fibers. They're actually using fibers which are refabricated from plastic bottles. So a lot of such work. There are other biomaterials that are getting made. I recently saw an example where mushrooms were being cultured and cultivated to draw out fabric from there. So it's a very beautiful, it's a very high on innovation and science driven industry. And while startups can innovate, and they are innovating, but still the point is that existing businesses, to change those, it will take some time. And that is why there is a whole argument on how much role a government should play and how quickly, because we are not meeting the 2030 standards, right? We're supposed to be sustainable by 2030, and that's not happening, right? Because of this reason, that governments have to really move fast, create the infrastructure. So for example, for EVs, we have to ensure that everybody has charging stations, because what about people who live in high rises? Where do they place their battery? So right now, only people with still parking can use that facility. Nobody else can buy it. If you don't have a still parking, it's very difficult for you to put your charger somewhere. There are real considerations, yes, on infrastructure. So that's where we are relying on the government to move really, really fast on these things. If they are there, then obviously, then of course, if there's a clean grid near you, you'd opt for the clean grid. Things like that.
You talked about innovation, and we also just had a slight insight from you on challenges that are coming. The fact that you need more intervention and faster intervention from the government. Looking back, I see that there was a time that polythenes, the plastic bags, actually came into picture because we wanted to save the trees being cut, right? So every innovation comes with its own set of challenges. Now, do you see there is a challenge that sustainability-based businesses and wherever we are trying to bring in these innovations which drive towards sustainability, do you see or foresee any challenge that will come with it?
There are already huge challenges that are coming with anything. When you say that this is an innovation, it only makes sense for a consumer at a point where it has scaled. The cost is so high. So even right now, if you're looking at all this investment in hydrogen fuel, but the fact of the matter is we can't use it because it's too expensive right now. It's not viable. So this whole drive towards, when there will be enough adoption so that the costs go down is the biggest challenge for a consumer, especially in India, because no matter what segment we are in, whether we are SEC A1 plus or we are B or C, we are all price driven. Imagine if I tell you that, okay, buy an electric vehicle. It is anyways more expensive than a normal vehicle. And, you will be spending way more money in charging that vehicle than you will spend on petrol. Adoption will be zero. Yeah. The only reason it's making sense is because the price of petrol is so high that you're like, okay, it's compensating. The price of charging my car isn't that high, and therefore I'm using it. To be very honest, it's an absolute cost consideration. So this is the biggest challenge in this sector, I feel, where innovation is concerned, because every innovation comes at a higher price right now. So again, now we are reliant on the larger industries to adopt first, so that scale can happen, which can then ultimately percolate to the customer. Yeah.
Now looking back to the part where you are right now, when you were building V Resorts, right? And much before that, you've had a consulting background, you came into V Resorts, built that, scaled that. I would love to know, because I'm an entrepreneur myself and I interact with a lot of entrepreneurs who also happen to be women. What were some places where you almost felt that ab nahi hoga, this just cannot
Yeah, I
happen. This is
felt
not
like that
happening.
every day. Every day. Every day was, a struggle where like, nahi ho payega yaar. It's not gonna happen. I wanted to be Jacinda on a daily basis that, dude, my fuel tank is over, okay? But no, see, and I was sharing with this with you earlier also. See, V Resorts was a very highly operational business. So many investors told me at that time I didn't want to hear them and I didn't want to listen. But it was very operationally heavy. I had 3,000 people, yeah, as my staff. Everyone had access to me. Everybody had my number, because that's the only way I figured that I could keep track of what's happening at the ground level, because I felt that if I'm not accessible, I'll just have to rely on the next in command and I won't know what's happening. So I thought that's a good idea. But the flip side to that was that, I was dealing with people on a daily basis, and the struggle was real. Every day there was some major fire to put out somewhere. Someone had quit, or someone had decided that, we're not paying them enough. I mean, all the challenges that you can think of, that come with a large work staff, which is predominantly blue collar workers. uh, Within the company also, I mean, there were about 120 people at the corporate level. So that was also huge. And the people challenge was absolutely real on both fronts, because I had a B2C business. So on one front, I had my employees, on the others, I had the customers who were coming to me. It was very tough, and it was, see, these were really the two parameters that I used to follow. One is, how are the numbers in the company, and the second used to be, what is the customer feedback, because for me that was paramount. Every day there used to be some struggle, some customer complaining, something happening, somebody tweeting with your name on it, somebody trolling you. It happened, I mean, really on a daily basis. I had to become somebody putting something on Glassdoor. I've been fired. I've been, this has happened. It was very, very difficult. And unfortunately, I was a single founder. I had a management team, no doubt about it, but founders are founders, let me say. And the entire responsibility was on me, and it was extremely, extremely challenging. And I only realized that when COVID happened, and when I had time to really sit back and figure out, okay, what have I done with my life so far? And that's when I realized that, I mean, it was madness. I actually didn't know what was happening in any other sphere of my life. I was very focused on the company because there was just so much to do. It was never ending. Complaints were never ending, and all that. So it was definitely a tough journey, and I think the key takeaway from that is not that you shouldn't do operationally heavy businesses. That's really not the right thing to say. But it would be that, if you come with such an operationally challenging business, or actually with any business, frankly, you should have enough founders, and the founding team has to be strong enough to be able to shoulder responsibility equally. I think that was something which was missing. And in fact, at some point of time, my investors took up that role, and they were, so yeah, I mean, it was so challenging that they had to come in and say, okay, let's help out. Maybe we'll take responsibility for the tech piece, or we'll take responsibility for something. So it's really not a great idea, probably, to do that. I think that's really my key learning from that business. But otherwise, challenge wise, I don't know what was not challenging. I'm just trying to think about what was not challenging. Even like getting, an office, a new office, expanding, you need a new office, you had to keep shifting. The new office had to look a certain way. We had to do stuff within a budget. It was all challenging. All of it was challenging.
Of course, I think every day is a chaos. As an entrepreneur, as a founder, there's no day that you're not managing fire. You talked about. I took away two things here, and I'll come to both of them one by one. The first is that, do you think women often end up creating operation heavy businesses, less technologically scalable? Is that something that you observe, because you also invest into startups?
Not
Do you
now.
see that?
Not now. now I think a lot of women are coming out in the tech space. Almost every company that comes to me now for funding has a woman in the leadership team, or in the as a one of the co-founders. May not be the CEO. Women led businesses are definitely becoming more. Most of them are tech. I haven't really seen operationally heavy businesses so far, but I do know that the initial crop of women entrepreneurs they out there, yes, that is very true. We all built businesses that were operationally heavy and not so much focused on tech. But I think a lot of people made a lot of advancements, and so LBB is a good example. It started off like an events curating place, and very quickly made an open platform to be able to put experience. So it became tech very quickly. So I think people did figure out that tech is important. In my case also, we had a very strong tech stack at V Resorts, and we kept building, we kept trying to figure out how to solve problems with tech only. So I think very quickly people understood that, and I don't think that women are right now there are lots and lots of women in the tech space. And even if you're building a tech tool, and maybe the lady is not doesn't know tech, but then she will be there, maybe a PhD of something, maybe in science or something like that. But they are definitely part of the companies that are building tech.
That's
That's
true.
what I've seen.
That's
Yeah.
true. And I think with all the startups that are now pitching on Shark Tank and so many other places, you see that there is a lot of technological innovation that's happening where women are leading it or women are a part of it. That's
Yes.
very true.
Yeah.
Yet you do a comparison of how the initial crop of women founders were different, but they also adapted.
Caught on, yeah.
And another thing that you said was, unfortunately, I was the only founder when you were leading V Resorts.
Right.
Why unfortunate? You eventually had a management team and people that you now have, in your current venture, you have founders
Yeah.
along with you.
Now I have 4 founders. No, so look, being a single founder has a lot of disadvantages. It actually has no real advantage other than the fact that it's your face that everybody sees. So a great example of a huge company which has a single founder is Vijay Shekhar Sharma, Paytm. Yeah, he's done it and stuff. But I know how difficult it is for him as well. You see, what happens is, as a founder or maybe as a CEO, till the time that you don't have a CEO, the entire onus of everything to do in the business, from getting money, talking to the investors, operations within the company, everything falls on that one person, right? And that one person is really the face of what can go wrong. Honestly, once you've been a founder, you know that what can go right happens very little and what can go wrong happens more. So you sort of allocate every sort of trouble to that particular person, right? While the executives have roles and do, they are, let's say, they are responsible for their verticals and everything, they report to you. But ultimately, it is you who's the gap between your company and your customer, your company and your investor, your company and your, so and so. In a group of founders, you have these 5-6 stakeholders in every company. Every founder has a responsibility towards that particular stakeholder. So the most interesting thing is that if you are if there are 3 people, and say there's one who's the CFO or who's the, that person will take a lead when he does fundraise, and he will actually be the face for the investors more than the CEO, who may be a marketing person. The CEO may be the face for the customers. The CFO may be the face for the investors. The CHRO may be the face for the employees. So you see, the faces change, and therefore the responsibilities change. And the founders take equal, it doesn't matter what CXO position you hold, really. The founders take equal responsibility for their vertical. So, for example, even if you look at tech, so the CTO is always super critical, right? Or your product guy is super critical. So, that person is actually the face and he is responsible for that tech. So when you pitch to an investor also, that tech piece will be taken by him. So that entire onus doesn't fall on you. That's the difference between an executive and a founder. They never become the face for that vertical. Yes, because they're always reporting to you. So all employees, this used to happen very commonly in V-Resorts also. My team used to ask the employees that, why did you go to Aditi? Why didn't you go to me? So they would say, first, it would be a very interesting answer because founders are also seen as the owners of the business and have the ultimate responsibility. So those people used to say, because she's the owner, I don't want to go to you. Fine, you might be my reporting boss, but she's the owner, I will go to her. Which actually was not true in my case because I was a largely funded company, right? But the point is, that's how they perceive you. So if you have a founder and he's say the CHRO, the people will go to you because they know you're also an owner. That's a very big difference in being an executive versus being, even if an executive with equity is never seen as an owner the way that the founders are seen as. So I feel that it just becomes much easier to bear the burden. It is not lonely. Okay, you have those 4 people to talk to every day. It is great because someone is questioning you as well. The 4 founders don't think that just because you're a CEO, you are more important in the company. They never think like that. The founders always have equal footing, no matter what the equity structure would be. So they're very clear about that. And they every day they'll question you and say, okay, let's see where we've reached. Have we done well? What have we done wrong? It's a very interactive way to be able to deal with your company, and therefore, like you say that there are more heads. Also, we discussed that point about funding, that that's always great to have men on the team, because when you're pitching, even to customers in a B2B case or in an investment case, you're usually pitching to the men. And so you need to have men on the team who understand that language. A lot of the times I have come back feeling terribly dejected while the meeting went very well, and I really didn't know about it, because the guy's like, oh, but didn't you hear him? He said these 2 things. And I'm like, okay, great. So I know how to solve this. This is how to solve it. So while men remain at the helm, it is very important to have somebody there on your team who understands that. The other thing is that it doesn't, even if you're pitching to women, it's always great to have a diverse team. And I just say that across, it doesn't matter what you do. It's just always great to have a diverse team. You should never have, like just a group of women or a group of men. They do bring about different perspectives, and that's very important in a business.
Very true. You talked about the language being different for whether it is men in business or whether it is men who are investing versus women in business and women who are investing into startups and ventures. How is the language different? What have you observed from your journey that makes you say that?
Right. So I feel women, tend to focus on the story. You must have heard this. Everybody says, there should be a story. We should talk about a story. That's all. It's really not very true. Because when I have ever pitched to investors, and I'm doing that now as well, what they ask me? So how are you going to make money? What's the revenue model? Who's going to pay you? The questions are all around numbers. We get to the numbers later. It's not that we don't know them. I feel now women know their numbers as well. But I feel we get to it later after the story. We say, oh, look, this is such a beautiful story. And the guy is looking so impatient. He's like, just get to the slide where you're going to tell me how you're going to make money. So it's very different. It's really very different. I have seen this even now. I have pitched to a client. I have pitched to an investor. They told me and they gave me the second meeting as soon as they understood the revenue. I didn't even have to tell them why it's required. They're like, no, we know. It's all good. Yeah, we know it's required. Now you just tell me how you're going to make money. How's it going to do well? That's what. So it's very different. It's very, very different when you pitch. When you pitch to women, you will see a lot of questions on the theory of it. You will see questions around why do you think this will work? Why do you think the consumer cares? I don't think the consumer cares. Nobody cares in India. I wouldn't care if it's sustainable. They come out with all those things. They would quiz you really well on the theory of the business, and then get to the numbers. Of course, everybody needs to know the numbers, so they will get to it subsequently. But it's very different. It's very, very different when you pitch to either party.
So when for the audience who let's see let's say if it is women who are looking at raising investments, what would be your advice? 3-pointer advice to them, that what can they be cognizant of while pitching, whether it is Shark Tank, whether it is any investor, whether it is a venture capitalist. What are 3 things that they can ensure they do better?
It's really very easy. I think they should first focus on how they're going to build this business out. And that is something that that people want to see. How well have you thought through this? Have you really thought through going public? Okay. Or have you really thought through becoming the unicorn? Because that's why an investor will invest. He wants the company to be a unicorn. No one invests in a company which is, this is likely to sell for, okay, it will make $10 million. It's okay, I'm very happy making $10 million. I'll invest in this company. That doesn't happen. That's not the philosophy of venture. That's the philosophy of private equity, and that happens when you're vastly profitable and then you take money for scale. So it really does not happen at venture scale. Venture is about creating the next big thing, right? So when you're pitching for that, it is really about how well have you thought through growing your business and reaching there is the most critical point. The story has to be put through numbers, and the assumptions have to be something which are supremely defensible. That is the way that you will get the money, because that's the only thing that counts. So spend less time on figuring out, like we all get into, I had this problem, and so that's why I thought that, oh, if I have this problem, 20 people have this problem, I'm going to think like, they don't care. They're not bothered about the theory of it at all. Mostly when you're pitching to the men, this is how they like to hear things. When you're pitching to the women, they always check for how passionate you are. What have you done for this cause, even before setting up a business? They are cognizant of all those points, and it's good to talk about that. And passion should come through very clearly. But I have also seen that, at one point of time, I thought passion was about, oh my God, I'm so passionate about this. It actually isn't like that. A guy who's an engineer, who's very clinically thought through that these are my 4 models, this is how I'm going to disrupt the air purification space, this is how my tech is different, these are the results of my tech, this is the result of my pilot. That guy is going to get the funding, because you can see the passion in the clinical way
approach
that he has come out with his business as well.
And the clarity that has come
and the clarity
through.
Actually, it's the clarity. So really just focus on the clarity and focus on building out the business. That's what they really want to hear. And they love large goals and big vision. Everybody loves that. Yeah. And I think enough, the same amount of effort goes in small vision, same amount of effort goes in big vision. Might as well go with the big vision.
Yeah. It reminds me of my very recent interaction with this woman I met in Chandigarh. And she said that, if Falguni Nair can take Nykaa to an IPO, I bloody well can. And she's running a cab venture, intercity cabs. But that's her vision, right? You talked about the third thing, which is dream big. As much effort that goes into dreaming small, the same effort goes into dreaming big.
You might as well dream big.
Yeah. And that's a very insightful 3-pointer suggestion that everybody can take away from this conversation while pitching. Now, as we talk about all of this, tell me this, Aditi, that while you are building what you're building right now, what is it that puts into you that passion? We talked about passion. Where does this passion for you come from when it comes to sustainability? What sparked that for you?
So the word sustainability, I heard it for the first time when I got my first investor. So I had CDC and IFU were the country level funds, right? That had invested in V Resorts, and they took me to these workshops saying, it's great you're doing this tourism venture, but just look at this and look at sustainability and all. So I used to go for these workshops, and that's where I first heard the word, and I first figured, oh, there's something that you can do on this. We used to have ESG reporting. Okay, I don't think any startup does this. Yeah, even now I don't think they do it. But I had ESG reporting way back in 2014, and I know that we had to make reports. Okay, at that time, I can now say that we used to make huge assumptions. I don't think the data was accurate at all. I don't think there was a data reporting or system that we had where we could capture real data. We never focused on it, to be honest. But what we figured was that there are very simple things that we could do, okay, at the property level, which would engage customers. So my stint into sustainability wasn't really around whether my company has fair working conditions. I didn't even look at that as my first parameter. I actually looked at what are the things that we can do which the customer will be curious about. So very simply put, I had a resort in Satal. So initially in in 2014 was so amazing that customer, if you read the customer reviews, they're still on TripAdvisor. So it says that we don't want to come here, there's nothing to do, we are going to Nainital, and you have duped us because this is not Nainital. Okay, like stuff like that, right? So very quickly we figured that, okay, if a guy is coming to Satal and there really isn't anything to do, because back in the day that area was not developed at all. So we said we have to develop activities and we have to develop experiences around this place. How do we do that? We don't have the budget. We can't hire more people. We can't do that. So what did we do? We went out into the villages, spoke to the sarpanch and said, look, if you guys can do this activity for us, we'll pay you 500 rupees per week. Obviously, the guy's like, yeah, I got labor, man, I can do it. So that's how it started. My stint on sustainability is completely need-based. And that is why my insight also is that only if you solve a need with sustainable business will it happen for you. Otherwise, if you just pull something out of thin air, it's not going to work. It has to be cost efficient. It has to make sense for that place, right? So we started doing activities at the local level, which you can term as sustainable tourism now. Right? And we built this, very slowly. We started figuring out. Then we figured, okay, we were a fund-based company, right? So we had to, give minimum wage to all our employees. Okay, everybody in hospitality, what they do is they have this daily wage system. Okay, so you call guys when you need them and you pay them daily wage, and that's also a rule. You can easily do that. But if somebody's on your rolls, you will have to pay them at least minimum wage. Nobody pays minimum wage. That's very expensive. For a guy who's cleaning your utensils, your minimum wage is 14,000. You're not going to be able to afford it. So we used to be the company that we used to be like, no, we can't do anything. We have to pay minimum wage because हमारे तो investors बैठे हैं, वो क्या बोलेंगे? We have that report to give out. So we started doing things purely based on either governance or based on social impact. That you term now as sustainable. During my V Resorts tenure, I did not even know the term carbon emissions, what to do for environment, what can we do to reduce carbon emissions. All that happened much later. And we did some projects with the United Nations, which were on-ground projects. And that is really where the passion is stemming from. I'll be very honest with you. And that's why, like I said, I don't see another life for me. I love it when we can go on-ground and execute something. I love that. I am execution focused even today. So if I know the new venture is all about building tech, but I will keep doing projects at a local level, at a granular level, to see the impact of those things. That's the only way I'll learn. So at the present time, I'm doing something around zero waste in Nokuchiatal. So we actually go there and we've tied up with people there. We're doing something very fantastic. I mean, I hope this year people will get to see it. I hope it really works. But these initial stages have been complete. We've done a study there and it is very possible to get to that level. that's where my passion comes from. So I really like to see that change affected. I also feel that I saw all these, small hamlets where we had resorts have become, uh, well, they're really becoming overpopulated, overcrowded, and I can see so many problems that tourism brings with it, right? So I'm trying to do that as well. I'm trying to figure out how can we plug problems that tourism brings with it. So tourism has it's the best sort of multiplier. Okay, so it's the, because there you really do impact local level, but at the same time you bring more waste, you bring more pressure on land, you bring all those issues. So how can we solve those? So my entire passion comes from executing on ground. Then my team is going to translate that into tech, which is great.
That's
So
great, as
yeah,
long as there's something that can be replicated with
yeah,
tech
yeah,
and scaled
yeah,
so that the impact is faster. That is very much needed, as much as the execution on ground that you're very passionate about.
yeah. I love it.
I'm very curious. Do you think that there is a gap between how people perceive sustainability and how they practice sustainability when you go on the ground and when you connect with localites and local communities? Do you see there's a difference?
Actually, I'm very pleasantly surprised by this. Of course, I don't have too much data. So I'm doing another project in Andhra Pradesh. So I have that example, and I have the example of Naukuchia Talfa now. So it's not that I have a lot of experience around this. But this is what I found when I went to V Resort, when I was in V Resorts also. When we went at the local level and we spoke to those people on, would you like to start kayaking? Would you like to start snorkeling? They were very open to it, because ultimately everybody wants income, right? That's the main driving force. So at the local level also, you would think that typically a village will be dirty because it's India, and they don't know, they don't have the education or the background to understand it. The minute you tell them that, listen, this is to be done, they kind of just fall in place. Yeah, I don't know why it's such a hard country to govern. Maybe I'll find out at some point of time. But the point is that I have not found, I never find any blockages at the local level. They practice it better than us. Let me put it that way. So until and unless you see that, micro level execution isn't hard. Yeah, if it was hard, I wouldn't do it. It isn't hard. It's actually very, very rewarding. And you just have to figure out a way to make some money. You don't have to cover your costs, because the costs are anyways being borne by the government. But if you make some money, any money, income is a huge driver. If you are looking at paying somebody extra 500 rupees at the local level, they'll do it. It's that amazing as a driver. So that's what you have to do. You just have to find interesting ways to earn income, and people will fall in line.
Yeah, I know that you talk a lot about how economic viability is very important for sustainability to really
Yes.
happen.
Yeah.
And thus, incentivizing even through smaller ticket size is something that will boost it.
Yeah.
So that's what I take away.
I'm always a business person, so I'm not okay. I do rely on foundations to help me fund these projects, but honestly speaking, I feel that if you can make a business out of it in some way, yeah, make those women make something at the local level, sell it, anything. I'm telling you, they just want employment, they just want income. तो कुछ भी आप छोटा भी अगर शुरू कर सकते हो at the local level, it goes a long way, and that is their prime driver. It is that it is one problem that you have taken away from them. So it really can be done.
And with that, we are now towards the part where we talk about our rituals. So, as a CXO yourself, as somebody who's now managing a tech business, which is heavily working towards sustainability, I would love to know what keeps you sane, what keeps you going. Is there any ritual that you follow throughout your day, throughout your weeks and months that keeps you sane, grounded amidst all the madness that being an entrepreneur and a CXO brings with it?
Yeah, I'm quite crazy that way, I must say. I do have a lot of rituals. I really feel that putting your intention out there is primarily the most important thing that you can do. The intention has to be very clear. There are lots of ways to put it out there. You can chant, you can think about it, you can say it, you can write it. There are many ways to do it. And frankly, I follow a lot of them. I do a lot of them, but yeah, I do this very carefully, and I do it on a daily basis. I put the intention out for the day, and of course there are days where it doesn't happen. It's fine. I just chalk it up to a bad day and it's okay. It's fine. But that is something which I do. I do feel, a lot of people tell me you manifest a lot for yourself. I guess that's the way I do it. So that's my manifestation technique, if you wanted to know. And otherwise, what else do I do? I'm very particular about sipping water through the day. I think that keeps me hydrated, and it keeps you very energetic. I don't think anything happens. I've recently started getting up from my desk every 2 hours, taking a little walk. I think because by the end of the day, honestly, yesterday I tried it and I felt energetic at the end of the day. It was 10 p.m. and I was like, I can work for 2 more hours. I can do more stuff. So it's quite good. That's something that I do. My main detox is travel. It will always be travel. And that is how my brain starts working again. If I feel a blockage, for me, it's very simple. All I have to do is travel and it will open up. So that's very important for me. I always prefer that travel is around work. You won't believe it, because I've had like the most glorious experiences when it is around work. Around leisure also, it's fun. But I do tend to not get as much out of it as if it was for travel, because whenever we've traveled for work, there's always time when you are not working, right? And when it's your leisure time or whatever, and it's vastly more gratifying. So I prefer it's for work, but if it's for leisure, also great. Always make a point to take out time for leisure anyway. That is there. And I have a very, very regimented let's say a work week. So I know that I have to, this is the minimum number of hours I have to put in. I know my chores will not happen on a weekday, will happen. I won't try to even cram it in. Even if I'm free, I won't cram it in. I'll think of doing something else for work. So I'm very focused that way on doing, I'm a Virgo, yeah. So I'm over planned in everything, okay. So I never have, you will not hear me complain about I don't have time. Maybe to my friends, but nobody else. So I think I can make time for everything. Actually, anybody can make time for everything. That's true. Yeah. And I have very brilliant, let's say, hobbies, which keep me creative. So I love painting. I love, we've just recently done a book. So a friend of mine and I we've done this book. She's written, I've illustrated, and now it's a series. So we're working on the second one. Vastly gratifying. Because it's for kids who are in the 4th, 5th, 6th classes, and we've interacted in a lot of schools. I swear it's food for the soul. I keep myself extremely busy, I must say. Whether I have work or not, I make sure that I'm busy, because that's the way I like it. Yeah, I feel only if I'm productive will I be happy. It's like that.
And I think, with all of that, what I was just about to ask you next is actually the question that is left by our last CXO on our show, CXO Talks, by Rebecca Sood, who's the founder of Atmosphere, co-founder and CEO of Atmosphere Kombucha. But I think you've already almost answered that question, but I'll still ask you the question anyway, because this is a part of our show ritual as well.
Okay, yeah.
We have our own ritual, which is we have a CXO leave a question to the next CXO. So Rebecca asked this question, that what really drives you to do what you do?
Okay. I think curiosity really drives me. I love learning. I feel that I should learn something new every day. If I've learned something new, I'm in a good mood. If I haven't learned something new, then I'm in a bad mood. It's sort of like that. But I think really it's a lot of curiosity. I love experiencing new things, trying new things. I don't think I feel any fear in that regard. I mean, my fear areas, of course, they are. Everybody has their own phobias and fears, are in a completely different direction. But it has nothing to do with this. So I guess, yeah, that's what really keeps driving me.
Interesting. And I think curiosity is what feeds the soul to do.
Yeah,
And especially, I think for
absolutely.
entrepreneurs, curiosity
Everything.
is what gets you to solve things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now it is the time for you to drop a question to the next CXO. What would your question be, Aditi, to the next CXO that we have on CXO Talks?
Okay, if something isn't working for you, what do you do and how do you kind of change it? So, for example, if say in the business, so if say a vertical's not working or a product's not working or your fundraise hasn't gone as per plan, what do you really do to to accept that change?
Interesting. If something is not working for you, what do you do to accept that change? Interesting. I will definitely have this question passed on to the
Cool.
next CXO. And with that, thank you so much for this very insightful and a very candid conversation on
Thank you.
CXO Talks. I really loved this time that we had, Aditi.
Thanks a lot.
And I'm very sure that the audience would love it too, and they'll have their own insights that they'll draw. But yes, with this current venture and your next fundraise that you're now just heading into, all the very best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.